Hello, welcome to Government Connection. My name is Vicki Evans. Well, September was National Emergency Preparedness Month, but all of us should be prepared, informed, and educated year-round. So we're going to learn today from our guests just what it takes for many agencies and organizations in our region to make it safe for us, and then also what we can do. So please welcome Ray Klein. Ray, thank you for being here. And Ray is Deputy Chief with the Tucson Fire Department, and then he's also with the Office of Emergency Management. And we welcome Wes Deason. Wes, thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am.
And Wes is a lieutenant with the Tucson Police Department and a commander with the Emergency Management and Homeland Security Section. So again, thank you both very much. Wes, I want you to talk about, I mentioned briefly, regional and partnerships. You know, many agencies and organizations are involved in emergency preparedness from the federal level, you know, down to Tucson, to our, to locally, Pima County. But first, just so we get an idea of what an emergency preparedness exercise looks like and what's organized and what Wes will be talking about, let's take a look at an emergency preparedness exercise on the University of Arizona campus about 2 years ago.
We have a lot of medical responses, individuals going down. My eyes are beginning to water. I'm feeling some responses as well. Another couple of people. Hold on.
Directly behind you, and three here, and I'm going to go ahead and have you get full turnouts, SCBA, pull a red line over here into this grassy area, and we'll do a gross decon.
Hi guys, we got 2 here, we got 4 here. I think we got to throw a couple more in there, and I think we'll as well.
You out there, you go.
Okay.
Everyone out. Everyone that can walk out.
Can you walk? Kick them.
What's up? Can you walk?
Walk out the building and walk to the west.
Oh, very fast.
All right, come on guys.
Come on, can you walk? Let's go.
Can you get up? Are you alive? Can you get up?
Can you walk?
You can't walk. Can you stand up for me?
You too, you're hurting too, okay?
Stay together, guys. Okay?
I got 2 people that can't walk.
Tony, do you recommend that we start telling people what parts of campus to avoid, or is that too early, or what's helpful to you guys?
You've just been watching an emergency preparedness exercise at the U of A campus a couple of years ago. The premise was that poisonous gas had been deposited and then, let loose in some dormitories, and then from there, the emergency people came. So, Wes, talk to us about planning something like that, and why is it mandated by the federal government, and what the role is, locally.
Okay. Well, it is certainly mandated in a sense that the federal government and all local agencies over the last probably 8 to 10 years are really trying to employ lessons learned from some of those real-life events, the Katrina type events. Exercises are designed to allow us to coordinate and to learn what each of us has in common, what's unique to each of us, and allows us to work and communicate much more effectively. It is a mandate from the federal government. They fund them oftentimes for us through grant funds, and they reveal for us the things that we need to work on to make our responses better.
Who's the big federal boss in this situation? Is it FEMA? Is it the Homeland Security Department?
Most everything that we do in emergency management and Homeland Defense falls under the direction of FEMA. That's a little bit of a misnomer in that all emergencies start locally and end locally. And what that means is, if something occurs here, the first responders are your city officials. If more aid is necessary, if it's a very large-scale response, then the county becomes involved. If it's too large for the county, the state becomes involved. And it goes on up to the federal level. As the situation is mitigated or is taken care of, that draws down in the exact opposite order. So really, the responsibility for response and mitigation is local. It's with your city senior officials.
Okay, so talk about jurisdictions working together, because I can remember I was there at that for that covering that exercise, and there were people from all over the county jurisdictions. I felt, and and there were state people there. So I mean, jurisdictions work together with this kind of thing, correct? With emergency preparedness.
Very much so, and that has been one of the biggest lessons learned from historical events. I need to understand what the fire department needs to do with their hoses. They need to understand how to deal with our weapons. We need to understand county requirements, state requirements. The interoperability and the communications between those multiple jurisdictions has been a key factor identified in past events, and one that we work very hard to address.
So, Ray, do you have these training exercises for departments and jurisdictions to work together, work out the, the bumps, let's say, in working together? Do you do that? How often do you do that during the year?
Well, it varies. We're planning drills on a regular basis. We have, I would say, probably 2 or 3 large-scale, full-scale drills a year, but we also have other smaller drills that are ongoing on a regular basis.
So it's not just, how about communication across jurisdictions? I mean, is there my walkie-talkie, does it pick up your walkie-talkie? Does, and also just, so many people all at once handling an emergency.
Some of those are some of the issues that we're dealing with day to day. The simple answer to your question is we're not there yet. In other words, no. My radio, for example, our city radios don't talk to the county radios. There is technology in place that is addressing that for us. It's much better than it used to be. Is it quite there yet? No, but we're getting much closer.
Right. So what is the, there's that challenge, and but I was so impressed with this exercise that we just saw earlier, because people just seem to operate kind of like a well-oiled machine, and you just didn't even know from where the directions were coming from.
Relationships are important. Relationships are very important, and that's the key to some of this interoperable training is I know you by name, I know you by face. When we get to the plane crash, it's not the first time I've seen you. We have trained together, we've exercised together. Ray has the same thing when he's dealing with different fire departments.
Okay. And, the exercise, we always think of it, maybe exercises are for terrorist attacks or something like that. But, you mentioned Katrina. And, natural disasters strike more often perhaps than anything else that we're accustomed to here. But we don't really have hurricanes, Ray. We don't have huge natural disasters. I mean, many people might think are hot summers, but that's something that we live with. So, how do you do for local preparedness here? And did local preparedness here in Tucson help folks with Gustav, the big hurricane that just came through that Louisiana area?
Well, Vicki, you're correct. We don't have hurricanes here. However, we have to plan, and with Hurricane Ike and Gustav, we set in motion plans to receive potential evacuees, whether that was at a request through FEMA and through the state, or self-evacuees that just got in their vehicle and drove to our state. The state of Arizona wasn't identified as a reception site. However, we did get some self-evacuees to the Phoenix area. So we put in place a plan, and that plan carried out over 3 to 4 days, where we had conference calls with the state officials twice a day. We maintained information exchange with all the city departments, Pima County, Sheriff's Department, Police Department, and it was a collaborative effort to prepare. Red Cross took the lead on that in a lot of ways. We set up, we didn't set up a shelter, but we identified potential shelters, and we were ready to go if we needed to activate those shelters.
We actually, during Katrina, we did receive evacuees, didn't we?
Yes, that's correct. So even though we don't have hurricanes, we still can be affected by the hurricanes through evacuees. And we also have our own potential disasters, that being flooding, storms. If we had a severe power outage in the middle of the summer, you know, that would be pretty extensive.
Right. And that would be helping people who's, yeah, all of us with no power. Exactly. Wes, I mentioned terrorism, you know, just right before Ray was speaking. We're not a Los Angeles or a New York City, so is Tucson considered a terrorist target? I know, you know, I got to admit, my neighbors in my block, we don't really talk a lot about emergency preparedness. So I think most of us don't think it can happen to us.
Sure.
You know.
Well, Vicki, the short answer is absolutely. And by that I mean the federal government has done an assessment, working with our local Homeland Security officials, has done an assessment across the nation and has identified what they feel are the top 60 vulnerable cities in the nation. Tucson is one of those cities. Now, do we have, the question might be, do we have the symbolic, for example, the Twin Towers, or perhaps the Statue of Liberty, or something like that? We do not.
I know that would be a more symbolic targets are more likely targets.
Generally, when you look at the philosophy behind an attack, for example, the attack on the World Trade Centers, it is not just an attack on an infrastructure, it's an attack on an idealism. In that particular case, Western capitalism. That's more what they were really attacking more than the physical buildings. But in Tucson, the key piece that we would like our citizens to learn is that in the 9/11 report, the report that came out post the event in New York, the city of Tucson is mentioned more than 50 times. And that is because we are certainly a fertile bed for planning, for staging activities, for the type of things that our adversaries, that the people that want to hurt our country, they've got a plan. They're very patient. They take many, many years. Here in Tucson, we stand very good opportunities to interrupt that cycle. A citizen sees something that just looks out of place, makes a call. Maybe that call leads to the identification of an individual who's in the country illegally, and he's deported. And that interrupts the planning, and interrupts the cycle of what they were trying to accomplish. So Tucson absolutely has very important terrorism responsibilities.
Right. So regardless of really, I'm just thinking myself here, regardless of how we all feel about the immigration issue, does our presence close to the border precipitate or facilitate this area being, as you said, a planning or staging area?
It certainly does. And I don't know the statistics as we sit here today, but the leading number of illegal crossings is occurring right here in the Tucson sector. And those are numbers, and that's information provided by Border Patrol and Customs Border Protection. Our adversaries are going to find a way to come into our country. So certainly our position this close to the border offers them an opportunity and puts the responsibility on us to be vigilant and looking for these people and looking for things that are out of place, doesn't look right, and make reports. We need people to call us.
Right, right. So Ray, could you just, I was just thinking, so Border Patrol is a part of the huge preparedness jurisdictional structure. I was just thinking, you're here, both of you, you're representing Tucson Fire. Wes is with TPD. What other agencies, can you just kind of do a laundry list for us that are involved?
Statewide, or?
Yeah.
Well,
and it's a
all
test,
of them,
and it's
really.
a test, Ray.
Yeah, all of them really. Every city department.
So when you say that, you mean?
Water.
Oh, wow.
IT, communications, transportation. All the city departments have identified responsibilities if we need to activate an emergency operations plan. And we extend that out to the county. We have the Pima County Office of Emergency Management, the Sheriff's Office, Border Patrol, all the way up to the state level.
So we have DPS on a law enforcement jurisdiction, right? DPS, TPD, Sheriff's Office, and then state departments also are planning and preparing, correct?
Absolutely, and all of our partner cities, Marana, Oro Valley, South Tucson, Sarita, all of our partner cities are engaged in these planning exercises with the city every day. It is a regional concept. There really is, and that again is a lessons learned. There is no city of Tucson, there is no city of Sarita, there is no city of Marana It is a regional effort, and we bring all of our resources together to prepare and to respond and to mitigate these types of events.
All right. And so along that line, Wes, what is the, and I got it written down here, but I have no idea what it means, the Urban Area Security Initiative?
What that is, very briefly, is it gets back to what I mentioned earlier. The federal government did the assessment. They determined the top 60 cities that were vulnerable to some type of attack and allocated funding for those 60 cities to augment their local preparation for emergency management and mitigation responsibilities. In January of 2007, the city of Tucson was added to that list of one of the top 60 cities. Some of the information, some of the specifics about that, unfortunately, we cannot share with you here. We can't give the playbook away to the other team, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
But what it's done is it's opened a very nice funding stream that allows us to bring assets, training, planning, equipment, everything that we need here to the region to better take care of our citizens.
Okay. So when you talk about an all hazards, what are we talking about there? What are you talking about there? What does that mean? Locally, an all hazards approach for Tucson?
We want to get away from people thinking just terrorism. We don't prepare for just terrorism. We prepare for flooding, for a plane crash, a terrorism event, any type of event, because really the response, although somewhat different in some aspects, is going to involve the same people, the same radios that you mentioned, the same personnel. So we try to approach it from an all hazards approach, meaning when we plan, when we purchase equipment, we look at all the possibilities that could come here to our region.
Right. We've talked about the terrorism, natural disaster, but included in that, we've got a busy interstate coming through. I'm trying to just go through and think to myself what could be, a huge emergency affecting the region, but perhaps a tanker carrying sulfuric acid, or there are lots of things that we just aren't even thinking about in our day-to-day lives that could cause an emergency for all of us. So what else is possible along those lines?
Well, you have an interstate that goes through us, a major interstate that carries a lot of chemicals and supplies. We have the rail system that comes through our city. We have the airport. So a lot of accidents could happen. That could be very big and significant. You have all the natural stuff that can flood, storms, electrical hazards, power outages. Any of those things can occur at any time. So we have to be prepared and plan for those events.
Okay, all right. And we are talking with Ray Klein and Wes Deason. I should say Lieutenant Wes Deason and Deputy Chief Ray Klein about emergency preparedness. But just want to remind you that next week on Government Connection, we will be talking again with Tucson Police Department, who is working with the Alzheimer's Association to be able to recognize, so officers can recognize elopers, what the Alzheimer's Association calls elopers, people who suffer from Alzheimer's, who are not, who are wandering in the community, who have wandered away from the center of their care. So we'll be learning about that next week, and we hope you join us. But we still have a lot of time to pick the brains here of Wes and Ray. So let's talk about some of the challenges. We mentioned earlier about delivering this kind of emergency preparedness. You said communication system, talking with the jurisdictions is one, but I'll bet there are others, and then what can those be?
There are, and I alluded to it earlier. One of the biggest things is kind of what I referred to as selling the ice cubes to the Eskimos. When you ask, we don't have hurricanes, we don't have those types of things. Complacency is the enemy, quite literally. And what I would hope that your viewers get from this discussion is that we have to understand that emergencies can strike anywhere. A large commercial airline crash in the middle of the city of Tucson. I mean, those types of things do occur. Getting that message across to the citizens. I can assure you that our city senior leadership, our government officials, understand that. They get it. That's why they have us doing what we're doing. They're dedicating time and funding and personnel to that. And then just really getting people to buy into that concept and understand that it can happen here in Tucson, Arizona.
All right. And if you'd like to learn more about emergency preparedness, both on a regional level, and we're going to be talking about what you can do for your home and family. Please go to website www.ready.gov. That's ready.gov. And then locally, please call. In fact, Wes and Ray encourage you to call 837-7380. That's 837-7380, and they'll be ready to answer any and all questions. And to talk about, and I'm just going to jump ahead a little, about a kit, right? We're saying you should be prepared at home. What is that, and what's that all about?
Well, you should have a kit in place if you're called to evacuate your home, or if you have to shelter in place. You should be prepared to do that. That kit should contain supplies that, at least for a 3-day period, is what's recommended. Water, a gallon of water per person per day. Non-perishable food that doesn't require heat or electricity to cook. Doesn't require water to prepare. Medications, flashlight, batteries, battery-powered radio or a wind-up radio, so you can get news updates through the radio system. You have to basically prepare for the possibility of not having any electricity and not being able to obtain food and having to stay there at home, or grab that kit and go. So it should be mobile, should be ready to go. Box, you shouldn't have to, you shouldn't be trying to put it together as you're walking out the door. You should have it ready to go. Garbage bags, towelettes, any item that you think you will need for a 3-day period. You don't want to pack for, all your clothes and all that stuff, but maybe some changes of clothes, a few changes of clothes. If you have to leave.
And then what else is in a part of this being prepared at home? We've got the kit, which I think is a great suggestions. And how many of you really in your heart have a? I have to be really frank. We don't have a kit at our house, but I think we will be putting one together because when you look at what's happened with the hurricane, people in that area, the hurricane comes through and is awful for 24 hours, but the devastation left in its wake then causes so much havoc with neighbors and communities. So what about a plan? And I think of all those people on the interstate, or how to get my car, what kind of plan should I have?
Well, you should have a plan in place, and your family members should know what that plan is. And that plan should include how you get in touch with each other. If you're not at home and you're not all together when the call comes, you should have an idea of what you need to do and where to go. A meeting place, someone to call. Have a backup plan in case, for communication-wise, in case the phone systems are down locally. Long distance a lot of times works even though the local phone system is down. So have somebody that you can call that's out of town that can be the go-between if needed. The big thing is knowing where to go, coming together, and trying to stay together.
Right. What else do we need to know?
Well, you should keep informed. You need to remain informed. Know what's going on, locally and nationally. Watch the news. Read the newspaper. Also, look at the ready.gov. Look at the plans that are in place. What type of plans we have locally. And know what you can do and what your part is. Know what the police are going to do. Know what the fire department's going to do. Know what your local government's going to do.
And so if you want to find out what your local government's going to do during a time of emergency, and this is something you can, we want to take you to that website again, ready.gov, and also encourage you to give a call. I mean, Ray and Wes and others are willing to help you. 837-7380. That's 837-7380. Wes, were you going to say something?
I was. One of the key things I will inject here, coming to the area very soon, is a project that was funded by the Urban Area Security Initiative Program. And when Chief Klein talks about stay informed, that is absolutely critical and key in time of emergency. Coming to the region very shortly will be an automated emergency notification system. Somewhat similar to what goes on the television. We see the little ticker across the bottom that tells you storms are coming, or they might have the emergency alert system that kicks in and a message comes across. This is the same concept, except that it actually reaches out and involves the citizenry by allowing you as a citizen to register your cell phone number, your email address, your mom's cell phone number, your son's cell phone number, your home phone, into a system. It's not owned or operated by the city. It's owned and operated by a private company that we contract with. And in times of need, that system will call you, let's say, for example, flooding along the Rito. It will call the houses along the Rito River and tell them there's flooding coming. Be prepared, evacuate. If you're not at home, it'll call you on your cell phone at work and tell you there's flooding coming to your home. Prepare, go home, get your pets, get your special needs family members. It is a way, and they're becoming very, very standard these days. It's a way for emergency management officials to reach out to you specifically and tell you what you need to do in time of crisis.
All right. So what a great thing you will get eventually coming to us is this warning system directly to us. But you know, the kit we talked about, and we only have about a minute left. But what about things like papers and filing cabinets, and last but not least, but probably high up on the list, you know, our pets.
Our life exists on paper these days. You have to have those documents. Have them ready to go. Have them in a waterproof container. Have them ready to go. Have your pets ready to go. Plan for that. Reception centers recognize the value of pets. They will receive your pets. They will welcome them. You can take them with you.
All right. Is the most part of the planning too, and I'm just thinking of for my own self. If my neighborhood's going to be in the flood watch, you know, it's going to be flooding. You know, part of my plan is to get where to go once I have to get my family together, but it also includes what roads, right?
Absolutely.
So, you know, emergency preparedness, don't take it for granted. I can't thank you enough. You've given us a lot to think about and hopefully a lot to do. Thank you both for